When life breaks you down and darkness feels endless, your future doesn't disappear, it quietly calls you to rise, to fight, to become more than your pain. The question is, will you answer with action or stay silent in your struggle? Sometimes life whispers before it roars. Sometimes your future calls you long before you feel ready to answer it. I learned this when I found myself lying on a cold hospital bed, staring at a ceiling that suddenly looked too far away, too unfamiliar, too unwelcoming to the dreams I had carried inside me. Life has a strange way of breaking you exactly where you thought you were strongest, and yet in that breaking it reveals who you truly are. I remember the first time I realized that the world I knew had ended. Not slowly, not gently, just ended. All the plans I had made dissolved in a single moment. The girl who once believed she could run toward everything she wanted suddenly couldn't even move her own legs. The dreams that were supposed to bloom in the spring of my life felt buried under the weight of things I never asked for, and in that silence, when even my heartbeat felt heavy, I heard something. It was not hope. It was not courage, it was not strength. It was a question that kept returning to me again and again like an echo from a future I had not met yet. Will you answer? And I didn't understand it at first. I didn't know what I was supposed to answer. I didn't know why life expected anything from me at a time when I had nothing left to give. People think courage arrives like lightning, but sometimes it comes like a quiet, trembling voice inside you saying, "Try, just try." In those early days I cried so quietly that even the walls didn't hear me. I smiled so loudly that even my pain felt ignored. I tried to convince myself that I didn't need to rise again, that maybe I could just stay where fate had thrown me and let time pass by like a gentle stranger. But time is never gentle with those who stop living. It pulls, it pushes, it demands, and one day, as I sat alone with all the broken pieces of the life I thought I would have, I realized something. Pain doesn't come to stop you. Pain comes to wake you. I understood then that my future wasn't gone. It was calling me from a different door, a door I never planned to open, and the only way to reach it was through action, not grand action. Not miraculous action, but small actions, tiny steps of acceptance, gentle steps of rediscovery. I didn't suddenly become strong. I didn't suddenly become wise. I didn't suddenly wear courage like a crown. I simply decided that if life had broken me, it would not get the satisfaction of keeping me broken. I would put myself back together, even if the pieces didn't fit the way they used to. So I began answering. One small action at a time. The first action was to forgive life for not going my way. That forgiveness didn't come easy. It came with tears, with resistance, with frustration, with 1,000 moments when I asked, "Why me?" But forgiveness is the first step that frees you from the weight you were never meant to carry. The second action was to accept myself, all of me, the fragile parts, the angry parts, the disappointed parts. The parts that still believed in miracles and the parts that had stopped believing altogether. Acceptance doesn't mean you love everything about your reality. It means you stop fighting what already is so you can build what can be. The third action was choosing purpose. Purpose doesn't knock loudly. It whispers. It nudges. It sits quietly beside you until you are ready to see it. I found purpose the day I realized that my story was bigger than my struggle. That my scars were not signs of defeat, but signatures of survival. That even on my weakest days I had something to give the world, my voice. The day you decide to act, even in the smallest way, is the day your future begins to shift. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need everything figured out. You don't need permission. You just need one brave moment where you say, "I will try." And as I slowly started answering the call of my future, I discovered something life-changing. The world doesn't reward the strongest, the fastest, or the lucky ones. The world rewards the ones who show up. The ones who refuse to stay down, the ones who choose action even when fear tells them to wait. There were nights when I felt like breaking all over again, nights when my own reflection felt like a stranger. Nights when I wondered if the world would ever see me for who I had become instead of who I used to be. But every morning the call of my future was still there, soft but persistent, and I answered it again. And again and again, every action you take, no matter how small, becomes a brick in the foundation of the life you're trying to build. Some days you'll feel strong enough to lift mountains. Other days you'll barely lift your own hope. But both days count, both days matter, both days shape you. Today, when I look back, I don't see the girl who lost everything. I see the woman who rebuilt herself from nothing. I see someone who didn't let fear define her. Someone who didn't let pain silence her. Someone who didn't wait for life to get easier before choosing to rise. If I could whisper one truth into your heart right now, it would be this. Your future is not waiting for a perfect version of you. It is waiting for the version of you who is willing to take the first step, who is willing to answer the call, who is willing to fight for the life that still belongs to you. You may feel broken, but you are not finished. You may feel lost, but you are not gone. You may feel tired, but you are not powerless. Your future is calling, and even if your voice trembles, even if your hands shake, even if your heart is uncertain, answer with action. Because once you do, everything begins to change. There comes a moment in every person's life when silence becomes the loudest teacher, a moment when the world around you continues to move, breathe, evolve, while you remain still, learning to gather yourself from the pieces life scattered without mercy. I had many such moments when I sat quietly, pretending to be strong for people who visited me with hopeful eyes, unaware that the smile I offered them was borrowed from a place I no longer lived in. They saw courage, I felt confusion, they saw strength, I felt surrender, they saw a fighter. I felt a question, that question returned every day. Do you want to live as a prisoner of your past or become the architect of your future? At first I didn't know how to answer. I thought surviving was enough, but surviving isn't living. Surviving is breathing with closed eyes, living is breathing with intention, and intention only comes with action. Small action, silent action, action that no one witnesses, but that slowly transforms you from within. I realized something else. Your future doesn't call you from a mountaintop. It calls you from inside your pain. It calls you when you wipe your tears alone at night. It calls you when you are tired of pretending. It calls you when the world sleeps and the only voice you hear is your own. A trembling voice, a voice that asks, is this really the end? And somewhere inside you, something whispers, no, this is the beginning. I reached that beginning the day I accepted that life was not going to hand me a new path. I had to create one. Not with legs that could walk, but with a will that refused to stop. I learned that your dreams don't disappear just because your circumstances change. They simply find new forms, they shape themselves around your reality, they find ways to breathe through you, if you allow them. I started painting again, not because I wanted to be an artist, but because I needed to feel alive. I needed to feel color in my hands again. I needed to believe that beauty still existed in a world that felt monochrome. I remember the first stroke I painted after everything changed. My hand shook so much that the line wasn't straight, but when I looked at it, I saw something unexpected. I saw a possibility. I saw the beginning of a future that didn't judge me for being broken. Each painting became a conversation with myself, a gentle reminder that life may take away your ability to walk, but it cannot take away your capacity to dream. It may break your body, but it cannot break your spirit without your permission. And I decided, finally, that my permission would never be given. People often think action means doing something grand, something impressive, something loud. But sometimes the bravest action you take is choosing to wake up with hope. Choosing to greet a day that you fear might disappoint you. Choosing to smile at life even when life forgets to smile back. There were nights when I questioned everything. I questioned my worth. I questioned my purpose. I questioned whether I would ever be seen as something other than broken. And then one night, as I looked at the reflection of the person I was becoming, I realized that nothing about me was broken. I was simply rearranged, rewritten, redesigned by life in a way I didn't choose, but a way that still held beauty. You see, your future doesn't call you because you are perfect. It calls you because you are capable. Capable of turning pain into power, capable of turning rejection into direction, capable of turning fear into fuel. I began speaking to people, sharing my story, not because I had all the answers, but because I had finally dared to ask the right questions. I spoke of loss, but also of gaining a new version of myself. I spoke of sorrow, but also of gratitude. I spoke of limits, but also of the limitless strength that awakens when life tests you beyond measure. One day, a young girl came to me and said, "I don't know how to start again. I don't know how to answer the future." And I held her hand and said, "You don't need to know how. You just need to decide that you will. Because life will never hand you clarity wrapped in a bow. It will hand you chaos, and inside that chaos you will find the courage you never knew you had. Every day we have two choices: stay silent inside our struggles or rise through them. I learned that answering your future with action means refusing to let fear have the final say. Fear may knock first, but courage decides who stays. The truth is, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it trembles, sometimes it barely speaks. But even in its quietest form, courage is still courage. And every time you listen to it, even for a moment, you answer your future. There were countless moments when I felt like giving up. Moments when the weight of my own thoughts exhausted me more than my reality. Moments when the idea of a bright future felt too distant, too fragile, too uncertain, but each time something inside me insisted, not yet, not now, not like this. Your future is not only calling you, it is waiting for you. Waiting for you to believe in yourself, waiting for you to trust that discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation, waiting for you to understand that the biggest transformations often come from the moments you thought would break you. And so I rose, slowly, imperfectly, painfully, beautifully, not because life became easier, but because I became stronger. I discovered that the human spirit is not defined by limitations, but by resilience. That even when the body fails, the heart can still fly. That even when the world doubts you, you can choose to believe in yourself. Your future is calling. It calls through your failures. It calls through your fears. It calls through your quiet victories that no one sees, and the only way to honor that call is through action. Action that is gentle yet firm, quiet yet powerful, simple yet life-changing. And one day you will look back and realize that the moments you thought were ending your life were actually shaping your destiny. There are moments in life when you feel like you are standing at the edge of a cliff, uncertain whether the air in front of you will hold you or let you fall. Life becomes quiet, almost too quiet, as if it is waiting for you to decide who you are going to be from this point onward. I remember those moments clearly, moments when the world felt too heavy for my shoulders, moments when the thought of the future felt like a distant country I didn't know how to reach. But the truth is that your future does not stand far away from you. It stands right beside you, quietly watching every decision you make, every tear you shed, every breath you take when you're trying not to fall apart. It watches how you choose to rise after being pushed down by life again and again. The future is not a destination you travel to, it is a version of you that you slowly become. There was a time when I thought I had lost myself completely. When people looked at me with pity, I could feel their unspoken questions. How will she survive? How will she smile again? Will she ever be who she used to be? But life does not ask you to be who you were. Life asks you to become someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more aware of why you are still here. And I realized that the moment life takes something away from you, it leaves you with something else, something invisible at first, but so powerful that it becomes your armor. It leaves you with depth. It leaves you with clarity. It leaves you with a sense of purpose that pain becomes the doorway to. I began to notice that every person who touched my life, even briefly, came with a lesson I was meant to learn. Some people taught me patience. Some taught me courage. Some taught me how to let go without losing the softness of my heart. And some taught me that you cannot wait for someone else to pick you up. You must rise for yourself. There were days when the world felt far too loud for my soul, days when I didn't want to be strong anymore, days when my smile felt like a mask, like something painted onto my face to make others comfortable. But it is in those moments that you must sit with yourself and ask, who am I when no one is watching? Who am I beneath the expectations, beneath the disappointments, beneath the weight of everything I never asked for? I learned that the real strength is not in showing the world that you are unbreakable. Real strength is in being honest with your wounds, in holding your scars in your hands and saying, yes, this hurt me, but it did not defeat me. Real strength is letting yourself feel every emotion without shame, the anger, the sadness, the frustration, the exhaustion, and then choosing to rise again anyway. People see courage as something loud and heroic, but most of the courage we need in life is quiet. It is the courage to open your eyes when you didn't sleep the night before, the courage to speak gently to yourself when your mind is filled with fear, the courage to take one more step when you aren't sure where the road leads. The courage to believe in a future you cannot see yet. I remember a day when I sat alone, the sunlight falling softly through the window. It was a warm, quiet light, the kind that makes everything look peaceful even when your heart is not. And in that light, I asked myself for the first time, what if my purpose is greater than my pain? What if the life I imagined is not the only life meant for me? What if the future I fear is actually the future I deserve? And in that moment, I felt something shift within me. A softness, a clarity, a whisper that said, you are enough, you have always been enough, and you will always be enough. Armed with that whisper, I learned to rebuild myself piece by piece, not the way I was before. I didn't want to go back to that version of me. I wanted to grow into someone who understood the value of resilience, someone who could turn her wounds into wisdom, someone who could stand tall not because life was perfect, but because she chose to rise every time it tried to break her. I began to understand that healing is not a straight line. Some days you walk forward with confidence, other days you crawl, some days your heart feels light, other days the emptiness feels too familiar. But every day you choose to keep moving, that is healing, that is growth, that is answering the future with action. My future started to feel closer when I stopped asking why me, and started asking what now. Life may not respond instantly, but it listens. And when you take one small action, even one that feels insignificant, life responds. Not always with ease, but always with direction. I learned that the world will not always validate you. People will question you, doubt you, misunderstand you. But your future is not built on their opinions. It is built on your resilience, on your consistency, on your willingness to take action when everyone else expects you to give up. I realized that every time I shared a part of my story, someone else found the courage to share theirs. Every time I chose hope over fear, someone else saw what was possible. Every time I answered the call of my future with action, someone else found a reason to keep going, and that is when I understood, sometimes your healing becomes someone else's hope. Your battle may feel heavy, but your story may be the light someone else needs. The more I lived this truth, the more I realized that life may take everything from you, except one thing, the power to choose your response. And that is where your future begins. Your future begins the moment you stop running from your truth. Your future begins the moment you stop shrinking yourself to fit other people's expectations. Your future begins the moment you decide that your life has meaning regardless of what you've lost, regardless of what you've faced, regardless of how long you've been hurting. Your future is calling you. Not to remind you of what you failed to be, but to show you who you can still become. and I promise you the version of you that you are becoming. She is worth every tear, every struggle, every sleepless night, every step you take even when it feels impossible. The journey to your future is not a straight road paved with certainty. It is a winding path carved by your will to keep moving forward even when every step feels like a battle. I have learned that the most beautiful transformations come not from ease, but from endurance. The kind of endurance that doesn't wait for fear to disappear, but pushes through it anyway. That is the kind of action your future is calling you to answer. There will be days when doubt sneaks in, whispering lies about your worth and your ability. When the weight of your past threatens to anchor you down, when your heart feels cracked and the world's expectations feel like chains. But those days are not the end of your story. They are the invitation to rise beyond what you thought was possible, to stand taller than the storms that tried to drown your spirit. I want you to know this. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important than fear. The choice to act, even when the ground beneath you shakes, even when your voice trembles, even when you want to give up, because the moment you decide to keep going, your future begins to change. Answering your future with action means showing up every day, not perfectly, not without struggle, but with an open heart and a determined spirit. It means forgiving yourself for the days you stumbled and celebrating the days you soared. It means understanding that your journey is yours alone, and no one else can walk it for you. Your future is calling through the dreams that still live inside you, the passions that refuse to die, the hope that even the darkest nights cannot extinguish. It calls through the small victories that no one sees, the moments you choose kindness when bitterness could have taken hold, the moments you choose hope when despair beckons, the moments you choose love when fear screams to shut your heart. I have walked this path, and I have felt the pain of being broken, but I have also felt the power of rebuilding. The power of a spirit that refuses to be defined by circumstance. The power that comes from knowing that your story matters, not because it is perfect, but because it is real. Because it is raw, because it is you. When you answer the call of your future with action, you are not just changing your life. You are changing the lives of everyone who believes in you, and everyone who will be inspired by your strength. Your actions ripple beyond you. They create waves of hope, courage, and possibility. So today, I ask you to listen carefully to that call. Do not wait for the perfect moment, for the perfect plan, for the perfect version of yourself. The perfect moment may never come, the perfect plan may never appear, but your future needs you right now, right here, exactly as you are. Stand up, take a breath, take a step, answer your future with action, no matter how small. Because every action is a declaration that you are not done, you are not defeated, you are not forgotten. Your future is calling you to rise, to heal, to build, to become, to live, and when you answer that call, you become unstoppable. Remember, your future is not just waiting. It is ready for you, ready for the strength you carry, ready for the light you shine, ready for the greatness you are destined to achieve. So rise with courage. Rise with hope, rise with action, because your future is calling. Will you answer?